Anybody watching my channel knows I use this air compressor all the time. It's one that I built. It sits on an old tire. It kind of dampens the vibrations. Something I put together using junk, and it has been absolutely outstanding. I've kind of modified it over the years and just made it better and better. And I finally have it to the point where I myself think it is the ultimate air compressor. However, as I was using it today, I started to hear a little bit of a knock in the air compressor head, and it has kind of gotten worse and worse over the course of the day. So we're going to replace the air compressor head. I could tear it apart and rebuild it. Quite frankly, I have no idea what the specs are. It was given to me. I don't even know how old it is. It's just starting to knock. It needs a little bit of TLC, and rather than rebuild it, I'm just going to replace it. Now, I've just picked up this air compressor head. It's from Harbor Freight. It's a Central Pneumatic. I believe it's 15 CFMs at 90 PSI. It does require a 5 horsepower motor to drive it, and that's okay. I do have a 5 horsepower motor, so it should not be an issue at all. It's just a matter of putting all this together and making it work again. Mounting the compressor was actually pretty easy. The old compressor mounted on this particular rail here and this little teeny tiny rail here. As I said, I made this with a bunch of junk laying around in the garage. I ran out last night, bought some more metal, and I welded another piece of angle over here to support the other side of the compressor head. It is quite heavy, and I just felt like this time I might want to do it right, so to speak. That worked out really well. I put some heavy duty bolts in. I like to put mine in upside down so I can keep an eye on them. That way they vibrate. I know if the nuts are still on them or not. Probably not necessary, but it keeps myself at some peace of mind. Now, this head unit being from Harbor Freight, there is some Chinesian points that I want to say, and that is if you look down there on the sticker, it says that it should have a 3/4 inch NPT output on it, and it doesn't. It has some weird kind of air-conditioned flange. You can't really see it under all this mess, but everybody online kind of talked about trying to find this fitting, and it was kind of difficult. I tell you what I did is I just went to the hardware store, and I picked up one of these. It's basically a 1/2 inch to a 3/4 inch FIP, and I don't know if it really sealed inside. I didn't really care. I just used some Teflon and cranked it down tight, and then that allowed me to take a 1/2 inch flare and just tighten it up. So that worked out great for me. Just something to think about if you run into this problem. This is a double pulley setup. I only have one pulley actually sitting on here backwards right now. It's running okay, but I'm gonna have to order a double pulley. But I just kind of set this up so I could try it out and see how well it works, and it works fantastic. So since I reduced that to a 1/2 inch line, I kind of thought that might be a problem, so I just wanted to keep an eye on it. It really does not appear to be an issue. I think that can handle the volume of that compressor without any issues, but that did allow me to keep the air cooler before the water trap and before it goes into the tank, which I was happy about that. Quite honestly, everything is working great, and I like it that way. I do want to demo how long it takes for this compressor and this setup to fill this 27-gallon tank. That way, if you're looking for one of these compressor heads, you know what to expect. So it might get a little loud here, and it might be a little boring for some of you, so just move on, find another video. But for those of you who are interested to see how well the compressor head does, this is about 27 gallons. It's a 100-pound propane tank. At least that's what I believe it to be. You might want to look that up. But this will give you a good idea of how fast this head will build up a tank of gas. So I do keep a automatic timer on the wall, and I do that for one reason. I like to do that so that I don't accidentally leave my compressor on. So kind of a tip you might want to do yourself. Now the air you hear bleeding off is it's bleeding the head pressure, but because this is actually before the valve by design, because I want a dry air going into here only into the tank, it takes a little while to bleed off all of this pressure. It's a little bit wasteful, but I would rather have the dry air in the tank only. So it took a little bit of time, about 2 minutes, which is actually really good. And we just have nice dry air. And then in the bottom, it spits out the moisture. It's one of those Harbor Freight auto drain off kits. They're pretty cool. You tie them into the heads so that when the heads decompress, about a teaspoon of air comes out of the bottom of the tank. So if there is any water in the bottom, it just keeps it dry. It works pretty well. So now the final question is, how does this compressor head do? I'll be honest with you, it does extremely well. It actually fills this propane tank, which is a 100-pound propane tank. I think it's about 27 gallons, and it'll fill it from 0 to 120 in right around 2 minutes, which is pretty gosh darn fast for any compressor. It seems to be a little quieter than the other compressor. I assume that's probably because it has the filters on it, interacting a lot like mufflers. I am running it with the 5 horsepower motor, and it just seems to do really well. Now I've been sandblasting with it, and it seems to keep up with the sandblaster, and that's actually pretty amazing because the sandblasting cabinet is set to 80 PSI, and it will recover from using a sandblaster. So if you're looking for a cheap, inexpensive upgrade, definitely look out some of these guys at Harbor Freight. If you do a little bit of research on the reviews, they seem to hold up pretty well, and for the price that I paid, it's not really a bad deal. A new air compressor of equivalent value will run right around $800 to $900, and that's if you pick a cheaper, lower brand type compressor. And the head on this was literally $164 minus any discounts and coupons that you might have. So that's pretty good right there. So if you want to build your own compressor, that also brings up another thought. If you had a motor and some of these parts and pieces in a propane tank, you could have a pretty inexpensive compressor that'll last you for a very long time. So if you like these types of videos, please like and subscribe. Take a look at some of my other videos, and you might find something you yourself might want to build.